Right. Welcome everyone to the Cluster Addons meeting. Today is Tuesday, the 2nd of February. Do we have anyone on the call who's entirely new, wants to introduce themselves? Okay. So on the agenda, we have Google Summer of Code. Lee, you just edited it. Do you have any more details? Or
Yeah, I just wanted to open it up as a discussion item for us. We didn't have anything else on the agenda. It looks like we'll have a small call today. So could just quickly talk about this. Somebody popped into the channel. Their name is Shikar Rajak, I think. And they were just wondering if we had a follow-up idea for Google Summer of Code. Certainly, we have a lot of work that we've talked about being kind of specced out, and perhaps Summer of Code is a good season of time for folks to collaborate and for somebody new to get connected to the project.
So just
we have quite a few folks who could help. I don't know, maybe if the bundle stack stuff could fall into that category. I know that Nick was working on it, but Summer of Code is a long ways away from now. We kind of ran into this a little bit from last year where we, thought, okay, well, some of these project maintainers, they want to ship operators now. We don't have the tooling, necessary for them to take the approach that we're suggesting. And Summer of Code is kind of a long ways out. But with the amount of activity that we've had over the past few months, we're in a little bit of a trough right now. So maybe it would be good to be thinking about what Summer of Code could look like for pushing cluster add-ons into more uniform kind of status quo. There are a bunch of other interesting work items like the applications API that we talked about 3 KubeCons ago. And yeah, I mean, in general, we have things that we could help somebody do. And I do think that they could shape up to be the sort of epic kind of style of work that tells a story that, they look for in a GSOC proposal. Not exactly sure what the timeliness of this is, but it could start looking into it.
Yeah, I just had a brief look, and it seems like organizations still have time until like 2.5 weeks or something to apply. So I guess that's in the CNCF's realm for now. So we actually do have some time. But yeah, I think it would be excellent if we found like a really nice project, or maybe even 2, because I feel we have like many very experienced people and within cluster add-ons, and if we've identified like 1 or 2 projects of things that are still missing until people can start using it, or we could start talking about what we've been doing more. I'm just not quite sure what those projects might look like.
Yeah, and perhaps this could be, one of those projects might be some joint effort with the core DNS team. That they were keen on working with us previously, and maybe that work has just become deprioritized or something. So if we kind of chase them for what they're looking for, then that could help us reboot some of this work. 2020 was definitely interesting year for I think the Kubernetes project as a whole. So, yeah. So just trying to help things not be dropped if there are priorities. Cool.
I mean,
well, there's definitely some things to chase down there. Daniel, you said that the organization has 2.5 weeks to apply. I'm sure. So that's the CNCF as a whole with all of the projects, right?
Let me double check what I actually read. Where is it again? You can apply to be a mentoring organization for Summer of Code starting today on the program side. The deadline to apply is February 19th at 19 UTC. So yeah. But I think if we have a head start and like the two thing, or like for two of these things, it's actually quite clear. So for the manifest bundle cap, we know who to talk to. And the core DNS team, what's his name again? Rajan. I think there's a couple of people we can already ping and say like, this is like an obvious fit. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perhaps I'll also ping in that Slack thread to see if Nick or Rajan want to comment on either of those items potentially being a good path for GSOC. And then, yeah, I would be surprised if the CNCF wasn't applying as a whole, as they've done in the previous years. We could check with Nikita or whoever's
Ihor. Yeah, I can ask
going to be our.
No problem.
Ihor is going to be our org representative, probably. Yeah, you're right on that.
I'll ask him.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you just ask Ihor what we should expect. Sounds like, I mean, from what I remember last year, I think talking about this right now is like definitely way ahead of the ball. So we definitely have plenty of time. Cool.
And in terms of integrating with COPS and other bits or the add-ons installer, do you feel like there's anything there that would be worth looking at?
I will say specifically for COPS, I think we're just sort of trying to get everyone aligned, and I don't think that's a great match for a GSOC project. If we can get that alignment, then there could certainly be like a bunch of these sort of adoption and those sorts of things. I think that's a great idea. I suspect, but I don't know that it's the same story with kubeadm or cluster API, right? Like if we can lay the groundwork, then it could be to sort of clear the way. I think it could be a good project for someone. But if for someone in a sort of GSOC type thing, if that GSOC person has to spend their time basically persuading people that this is the way, that's going to be a tricky, that's not going to be a great GSOC project, like, because there might be nothing to show, nothing concrete to show for it at the end of that project.
Yeah. The another avenue here is we could also host some of the cross-cutting concerns out of the Flux project. Flux being a valid CNCF governed thing. The manifest bundle stuff would easily be consumable by source controller. So that's something that a GSOC person could work on either as part of one big proposal or as a separate one. Yeah.
Can you maybe give a bit more or go into a bit more detail? Because I'm trying to note this down and it didn't quite click yet.
Yeah, I guess if so, say we get the manifest bundle spec, really kind of in a good place. Now we have something where we can implement a client or tools, like we know how the Docker images or the OCI images should behave, how they should be labeled, where the metadata comes from, how to sort them inside of the image registry, that kind of thing. Even like verification of signatures. So we can implement those features to consume those bundle images inside of Flux's source controller. So you could have the GitOps flow, where Git isn't the source, and this could be, I mean, some of this kind of thing is already occurring with, OpenShift, and we would have more of a community adoption of this pattern. Are you following me, Daniel? So, like, the package for the add-on, could be bundled in the image, and then similar to how Flux source controller supports Git repositories and Helm repositories and S3 buckets and object stores and stuff, we would support installing add-ons and other Kubernetes resources from bundles, which are stored inside of the image registry.
Right.
That's something that a GSOC mentee could work towards, and we could organize that in ways out of the cluster add-ons project or out of the Flux project.
Cool. I noted it down.
And that would certainly be a good extension. Obviously there's, or I shouldn't say obviously, there are some things that like need to happen before that would be something you could work on, right? Because Nick was kind of owning the spec of the first real stab at like a specification for bundles that's implementable, but the that shouldn't take half a year to get done, and whatever work we were already planning beyond consuming bundles inside of declarative operators and that kind of thing, we could just as well be doing the Flux work at the same time. Okay. And that would get the ecosystem closer to having a way to share manifests that's not just like links to GitHub. This is a signed artifact that you can import into your registry, as opposed to forking or other mechanisms of inheriting the source.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. And that would definitely be, I think there's plenty of structure in place where somebody who, a qualified GSOC mentee would be able to implement that kind of thing with guidance over 2.5 months.
Do you think we should bring this up in one of the next Flux meetings, maybe?
Yeah, maybe float the idea to the maintainers team. Obviously, if we're doing something in this group that needs some kind of community adoption, that would be a good place to do. We might also want to let the Argo folks know, so then they could consider supporting that kind of source. And at that point, you've got a very meaningful addition to the ecosystem. People would probably start adopting that, at least for internal use. I'm not sure about getting bundles into Artifact Hub or something, but there's so many ways that you can go here. So and all of it is like something that you could just start working towards. Some of it requires a little bit of agreement from projects, but I don't think that particularly with Flux, it would be controversial to support the bundle image source as long as the specification was rational enough. So yeah. And if we adopt it in Flux, then I imagine Argo and other projects might be quite interested in doing so. Maybe there's some avenue for Tecton as well to be publishing these things. So. And the more of these kind of manifest bundles that we have actually packaged as images, I think it really creates a justification for building operators that reuse those packages. Prakash, are you raising your hand? You can speak up.
Sorry, I was not able to unmute. Yeah, so I just wanted to check on, are we talking Flux V2 or V1 and any?
Yeah, V1 is pretty feature complete. It's pretty much just in maintenance mode for security updates and things like that. So any additions would definitely be part of the V2 APIs and controllers.
Okay, so we start with V1 and then go to V2, or is it we start with V2? What is the?
There's no additions to V1 anymore inside of Flux, really.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, all additions would be on the new version of the controllers and APIs.
Okay, thanks. That should.
That's a good question. Cool. Well, we definitely covered quite a few avenues here. Definitely talk about it more since we're very ahead of schedule, considering it's a summer program. So
For sure.
Thanks for the brainstorming.
Yeah, super. Yeah, I started reaching out to Ihor, Evan, and others while typing notes.
Just to close on that, you mean that for licensing purpose we need to use for OSI the Flux V1, or is it to come for the GSOC? I mean, is that a criteria? No, so GSOC does it have a criteria which requires that we use Flux?
No, there's no criteria that like forces or the cluster add-ons effort, the sub-project that we have, to work directly with the Flux project. They both, like, our sub-project is organized under Kubernetes, but we consider the whole ecosystem of things. And projects like Flux and Argo are also CNCF projects. So the CNCF really does like to see interoperability between the different components of the cloud native ecosystem. So making Kubernetes work well with other tools that are interested in artifacts, whether those artifacts be in Git or a Helm repository or an image registry. The CNCF's effort for Artifact Hub, which is to pull these things together, along with policies for runtime security and API validation like OPA and Falco. All of those things kind of like cross-cut into like, how do we bundle resources together and package them and share them? And there's no like real Helm chart equivalent for just like a directory of objects, except for Git repos, And so having a packaging format that's shareable via image registry is one of the things that we've talked a lot about in cluster add-ons. and we can help the community adoption a little bit by potentially using a GSOC proposal to help somebody new contribute and build something open. There's no like real licensing concerns. I mean, since all of them are CNCF projects, like we all use the APL2 license. So, but no one's like forcing this kind of interaction between the projects. And I did mention Tecton, which I think is a CDF project, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a different foundation altogether. Yeah.
Sure. Got the essence of it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, I think that was our only agenda item. We don't have anybody here who is asking for updates or help on any of the things that were being worked on. So I might just have a short meeting today. It's great to see all of you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone.
Yep.
Have a good one, and see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, everyone. Yep. Appreciate it.
Bye.